to our end of season video, we've come down to Terry's office at Cramlington and just to add a little touch. Looks a lot smarter too, doesn't it, sometimes, and the surroundings and the fields in the background. So Terry, a monumental season just ended for you. Plenty of ups and 1 or 2 downs as well, but I think overall you must be delighted the way things have gone.
Oh yeah, it's been fantastic. For 95% of the season, we were achieving exactly what I wanted us to achieve. Injuries probably robbed us of a higher position in the league. We won the Gold Cup. It was just about the highlight of the season as far as I was concerned. It was a great shame that we got the injuries on the night, but I think everyone's shown, both on track and off track, have actually shown an awful lot of courage and determination to see us through to the end of this season. And I'm looking forward with a vengeance now to 1992 in terms of what that's going to bring for us.
It's certainly will be coming around quickly. You've got the Promoters Conference coming up over the next few weeks, and that'll determine the points limit, no doubt, for next season. Do you think possibly that may go up from the 40 it was at the start of last season?
There's a camp of about 6 clubs who are determined that the points limit should go up to 42. The majority, however, are against that. I think this, in a sense, this year's AGM is even more important than last year's. Last year's was obviously split between British League and the old National League. This year's is the first time that they've had such a large attendance at an AGM for some time. Lots of promoters are making various noises really about the future of Speedway. They've seen the amalgamation as being a good idea in principle, but in reality it hasn't worked to the benefit of the majority. Funnily enough, Berwick are just about the only club in the UK who have actually had such a dramatic increase in the average crowds throughout the 1991 season. I've been speaking to various promoters just this morning, and they've been telling me, some of the ex-National League promoters who were with us in the First Division are saying that their crowds have only gone up by an average of 5 to 10, at best an average of 5 to 10. And at worst have dropped by 100 to 150, and of course the overheads have gone up dramatically, First Division racing. So I think they'll be looking very seriously at keeping a points limit lower, or certainly as low as it is at the moment, because the higher the points limit, the greater the expense of running the club. And with the best will in the world, the people who have to pay through the nose for riders' wages escalating and teams getting stronger are the general public. And it's a case of, what do the general public actually want to see? Do they actually want to see, at any cost, very high-class racing, or they want to be sensible and pay a sensible price and see something that's as enjoyable on the evening and professionally put to them?
Yes, that's true. I think we have put on a professional show. Turning to the riders' side of the business, obviously Kelvin Tatum is on his way out of the club. I think that's very common knowledge now. Do you think possibly, looking at replacements, you may go into the second division and look for maybe even 2 riders to come in and replace one?
Well, I would like to see the team strengthened in depth. Everyone's got to remember that we have the whole of last year's team, the National League team, still on our retained list. And we still have them, as far as I'm concerned. They're the people that I'll be using to horse trade to actually bring riders into the First Division from the Second Division to actually strengthen the team in depth. We can't drop into the Second Division and replace Kelvin with 2 riders of lesser quality and think that we're going to do as well as certainly as we've done in 1991. We do need a rider of Kelvin's quality to actually replace him, or very close to it, to actually replace him, so that we're successful. My major concern is not so much in replacing Kelvin Tatum, it's actually strengthening the team in depth, because too often this season we've seen 3 riders score 30 to 35 points between them, and the remainder of the team only score 5 or 6. That's where our problem lies, is in terms of the other 4 riders, not in terms of the heat leaders. We can get heat leaders who will score consistently in excess of 30 points home and away. I want to make sure that the remaining 4 riders score consistently in excess of 15 points to make sure that we win at the majority of places.
So here we are heading to the winter, Terry, and we've got 1 or 2 functions coming up, but it won't be long till next year. But I think you've been quoted on record as saying you maybe wouldn't like to run as long next season. I know you'd probably want to start about March again, but I think the nights drew in on us a bit at the end of the season, and it affected the crowds, didn't it, late on?
Yeah, that's certainly true. Our average crowd throughout the season, up till the last 4 or 5 meetings, was it was online in terms of what we needed to make the club break even. Unfortunately, for the last 4 or 5 meetings, as has been well publicised, our crowd actually dropped dramatically, and I think that's partly due to the late nights and the cold nights coming in, partly due to the fact that we peaked in a sense by winning the Gold Cup, and partly due to the fact that we did rely an awful lot on a number of tourists actually coming in, and of course once the tourist season finishes and the children go back to school, then we tended to lose those numbers. So I think a combination of those three items actually affected the gates. For 1992, in terms of scheduling the fixtures, I would certainly like to see the fixtures scheduled to such an extent that we'll finish more or less at the end of September and don't run on into October, unless absolutely necessary. And we'll start that bit later as well, because of course we started the season supposedly with a meeting with Bellevue, which we had to rain off. The weather was too bad, and also, as we remember, the car park was absolutely soaked. We've got to take into account that we might have another bad winter, and we'll start that bit later, and we'll start right at the end of March rather than mid-March, and we hopefully will finish right at the end of September rather than right at the end of October, and try not to finish with Bellevue this year.
You've been quoted, just on a final point, Terry, you've been quoted as saying you may have a new sponsor lined up for next season. Are you optimistic on that score? A new team name maybe?
Yeah, we've certainly got we've got some very important things put in place now for 1992. We do have a sponsor. This year we've had a quasi-sponsor in the form of the brewery, but they couldn't have their name shown or associated with motorsports. But in terms of individual meeting sponsorship, it was a major disappointment this year that we didn't have enough meetings sponsored. But in the current economic climate, businesses don't have the amount of money to invest that they had in previous years, and you have to be realistic and realise that that's not going to be forthcoming. Next year, I've worked very hard throughout this year, and I'm working very hard throughout the winter, to get a major sponsor, and we've just about got a major sponsor organised now. We will not be announcing that until the end of the major sponsor's financial year, because it's following financial year sponsorship deal. So that's very encouraging, and that's quite substantial, certainly be the most substantial sponsorship deal that Berwick have had. On top of that, there's the club is very close to organising something on a firmer footing on a non-speedway side, which will have a dramatic effect on the speedway business and bring in a substantial amount of money on a weekly basis into the club. And again, we're sort of early days in terms of, well, I've already organised in terms of the financial side of it, but plainly we need to go to the planners at the council to make sure that we have their authority to do what we're trying to do. So between those two things, I'm very, very pleased with 1992. 1991 could have possibly had those things in place, but of course I spent the majority of the winter either at Speedway AGMs or negotiating with bringing new riders to the club. This year is very different. I have far more time on my hands throughout the winter, so in terms of putting things right for the club for next year, I'll make sure that we're in a position that even if we only have 400 or 500 supporters coming in, the club is still successful, and which is obviously important.
Can't wait till next March, Terry. Thanks very much once again, and all the best for the close season.
Thank you, Dennis.